Hey, how you doing? Happy Sunday. Beautiful day today. Just running, coming back from doing some errands myself. I'm gonna log. I'm Peter Barron, by the way. You probably know that. I'm always talking about music. Let me close my car here. I already put the club on it. Oh shit! When was the last time you seen somebody use a club? Well, I got an old car, so I guess you do old things if you have old cars. Um, but I'm in the mood to talk about art, since that's what I kind of live and breathe doing all the time, incorporate it with the music. So why don't you come upstairs if you got a few minutes? Let's talk a little art. I decided to sit down actually for a quick moment before I head upstairs. So Walnut Creek, nice little area, not too far away from the jazz club, the Impulse Room, which is where I was last. And now, obviously, as you know, I've got the backyard improv series where I incorporate my art. But the topic of the day, or for me anyway, today is the art. And what prompted me to do this is actually just recently I had a couple people who said they'd like for me to teach them art. And I thought to myself, well, other than teaching a little bit in grammar school for some young students there for just a short time, which was fun, what would I say? 37, 38 years of being an artist and being around it for longer than that, with my dad being an artist and his mom. What would I say? What would I say to somebody? And I thought to myself, knowing me, I'm sure I got a few things to say. So come up with me. Come upstairs. Maybe we'll paint. Let's paint together for a little bit too. You can watch me through a period of funkiness or frustration and see if I can work my way out, or that'll be a part two of this whole thing. Let's go upstairs. Well, we might as well go together. Walnut Creek. Guest quarters, my studio up here. But how cool is this? Which any of you who come to the backyard improv, they've been a couple other places, but that's the main area. So basically I live right above our stage. Funny how things work out, huh? Alright, let's go inside. Hey, if you don't mind, give me a couple minutes. I'm gonna go in and make sure everything's in good order. I wasn't expecting company. So everything's on a whim with me. Well, not everything, but a lot of stuff. So, hey, just pretend like you're in the dentist's office or something. It just won't be as painful. Well, hopefully. So give me a couple minutes. Check out some of this artwork. And we'll talk. for being patient. Thank you for hanging out a few minutes. Hope you don't mind that I changed. Just wanted to get a little bit more comfortable. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, I'll probably change one more time. I'll ask for your indulgence. So now I was thinking, can we paint together for a little bit? I have no real plan about what I'm going to do or what I'm going to say, but that's pretty much how I operate anyways, you guys know. So I'd like to get moving towards that, but as I sit here, what do I have to say about art? Well, it's been hugely important to me in my life, and just like music is to a lot of musicians and people in general, and art is, and hobbies and sports and all that, certainly good to have a avenue to release energy and in my case, expression. So art's a big deal to me. My background is, I don't have any real traditional formal training. I took it all through high school. I was raised around art. My dad was a real well-known, accomplished artist who specialized in portraits in the Los Angeles area, and his mom was really well-known in Canada doing landscapes. So I just remember waking up and looking at the easel and him painting over there. Never was really taught by him. I pretty much developed that on my own. And my very first painting was in 1986. I remember being at a friend's house and just something came to me. I don't know what it was at that moment. I was watching MTV or something. I think it was like David Bowie. I don't know what it was. I don't know when that year was, but for some reason that popped in my head. And I said, I want to go buy a canvas and some paints, and I want to put something down on here. My very first painting was called Watching, a little bit on the darker side, but it was reflecting the time I was going through at that time. But what is it do I have to say about art? If I had to use a word, a single word, to convey the benefit that I get from it, is the ability to persevere, perseverance. And what I mean by that is, I've lost track of how many paintings I've done. It's probably in the neighborhood of 100, 250 or more. I've lost track. And inevitably, every painting I do, regardless of whether I had a preconceived idea, I pictured something in my head, or it's just random abstract color, or just a random painting that I'm creating on the spot. Doesn't matter which way I came into it initially, at some juncture, at some point, I look at it, usually in the beginning, it's usually always in the beginning to the middle, where I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. I won't say discouraged, that's a little dramatic, but frustrated. And my first instinct, even after doing 250 paintings, even after painting for 37, 38 years, still to this day, today, there'll be a part of me that goes, man, it's just not turning out the way I wanted to, right? I don't know, I'm picturing a finished product in my head already, and laying down these strokes, it's just not happening. But I've learned, whether I stick it aside for 5 minutes, or I just continue on at that moment, or I stick it aside for a day, to get back to it and push through. Because it's that moment of coming up with a piece that you yourself as the artist likes, but knowing that you wanted to quit, and feeling like the end result was going to be so far away and you weren't even sure if you can get there. Even if you change your mind halfway through and do something totally different, and you paint over that and it turns into an abstract color, but initially it was going to be a lake. That doesn't matter, because that's part of the process, right? So just get to the point of finishing something, regardless of whether it was meant to be that or not, or it looks different than what it was supposed to be or whatever, but finish it. Then you get to sit back and say to yourself that you're happy with it and that you really wanted to quit a few times. After all the money that was spent in the paint, and you wasted it because you didn't use it, like what happens to me all the time when I'm doing, abstract color and stuff like that. So it's that perseverance, and then I'm able to use that and put that towards other areas of my life. So I want to please everybody. I want everybody to like all this stuff that I've ever done, but I've learned over time that you got to get a little bit of a thick skin, because not everybody's going to love everything you do. So as long as you can push through to the point that you're happy, and then hopefully have a diverse enough range of stuff where somebody's going to like something you've done, then the idea of learning perseverance and patience really pays off. You know, just like they say, you know, learning the piano is great for math skills and all these other things. And so there's these benefits to all these cultural, all these art forms like music. But for me, art has always been the way. And I'm blessed these days to be able to incorporate it with the music in the improv series. So thank you to everybody for that. And the takeaway from this is art is awesome. It gets frustrating, it can get expensive, it gets, it's just like all these other things. But hang in there, produce a product, even if you're an audience of one, even if you're the only one to ever see it, finish something that you like, that you could proudly hang or prop up against the wall and go, I know I did that. And I didn't want to do it, I wanted to quit, right? So I'm going to get to painting. Let me put some shorts on and I'll show you exactly what the hell I'm talking about. Well, you know what I'm talking about, but in real time. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's work on 2 paintings on the idea that we're not going to finish them. We're just going to kind of start them and work through the process on 2 separate ones. One will be brand new. I have no clue. It's going to be a smaller one. And one is going to be an abstract color that I started working on, which I'll explain and we can go through together here. Okay, camera's a little bit in the way. Okay, well, I think in the name of improvisation, maybe we'll spend a couple minutes doing something here and on a larger one that's an abstract color, just to show you a couple different things. And this is just me. So right now on this particular one, this relatively small one, 18 by 24, I think it is. I have no idea as I'm sitting here right now. I don't think I'm going to do an abstract color. I think I'll do something that's got more imagery in this one. But free-flowing and not that structured. It's not meant to be realism. But right now, as I'm talking, I'm just thinking maybe kind of a cliff scene with some rocks and maybe like a tree in front of it, and then working some kind of landscape. So just for grins or giggles. Okay, so I can do something like that. Or better yet, I'm going to ignore that line. I don't like it. I'm going to start up here a little bit more. You know what, we're going to turn that into something. So right at this moment, I don't really care too much. So that could be like the lip of the rock. A little bit of an overhang here. Come in like this. And then maybe we'll have some kind of branches in the foreground. Okay. Like that, maybe this tree is the main deal of this. Who knows? More coming off here. These are just very loose guidelines. I'm a guy who does not mind using an eraser. I like using an eraser. So since that space belongs to the tree, go like that. I'm going to stop there for a second. So I don't know how much of that you were able to see earlier, but just flowing with it here. I'm thinking, let me darken this a little bit, maybe some kind of cliff here with some overhang. Well, let's make this, okay, but that belongs, and I'm having a couple trees or branches in the foreground and maybe some cliffs and rocks in the background. The reason I'm erasing this is these things are belonging to the space of the branches. This is just very loose, gives me an idea of what direction I want to go, I guess. I'm just playing it by ear. Okay, this branch is going behind that one. Alright, alright, so we're not going to worry about that. Come here and here. We're going to go in with more detail later, but this is just giving us a rough idea, okay, of something that we can do. And then we can, work some area over here. All right, well, maybe we'll do another cliff. How's that? We'll do another kind of ridge or cliff here. Okay. All right, that's step one. So obviously I'm not going to rush through this. I mean, I work pretty darn quickly, but my intent here is not so much to, I'm looking for a brush as I talk to you. My intent is not to so much to finish this right now. I'm not going to do that. It's going to take me probably a number of days by the time I come in here and really figure out what story I'm trying to tell and all that kind of stuff. But at the moment, I will just give you an idea that if I was pursuing this, which I am, I'm just creating with you, I'm going to, for me right now, I'm going to darken this in. It's basically the same thing as these pencil lines I had, a little darker. Again, for me right now, I'm not too worried about clean lines, because the clean lines I'm going to come up and I'll take care of as I'm working in other parts of the painting, the background, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to give you an idea as to, at least the way I do, everybody's different. So that's the thing. It's like, if somebody says, no, that guy's crazy, I don't know what the hell he's doing, he doesn't know what he's talking about, well, then, so be it. And that's it. I'm always sticking my fingers in paint. So, man, I must be washing my hands. I don't even know how many times. A lot. I'm like one of these dudes that, okay, I end up having paint and my hands dirty all the time. But in the same time, I'm like trying to keep as neat of an order around here. The place isn't that big. It's not like my house before. Drove my wife at the time probably nuts. I don't know why. It looked beautiful. It looked great. But it was like a gallery. Paintings and everything hanging everywhere. Photographs. I have a lot of photographs. So, okay. Anyway, let me bust this out here. Now, I just want to give you an idea. I got some colors here. I'm just going a couple shades of like brown, black, and a white. And again, with these things, it takes a while. It takes a while to develop layers and colors and shading. Shading's a big deal. But let's say as I'm working on this, I don't know if we can see that. All right, maybe we can see it. Let me see if I can get up a little closer. Is that possible? All right. So you probably all know this. Everybody's got their own different techniques and styles. Pencils get on my way. So as I kind of lay color in it, I'm just kind of running this brush vertically for now. But like for instance, if you wanted to show this as being somewhat three-dimensional, not maybe as flat, not as, and of course it depends on the intent. Maybe somebody wants it to look two-dimensional or not have as much depth, if you will. Not that I'm going for realism, but here's what you do. If you want it to seem a little more rounded, a little bit more like that, you're going to actually want to try to take it and go like this. Okay, and then you can see how it's kind of like that. You work this shading in, you work these colors in later, but the point is, rather than running your brush up and down like this the whole time, which is cool, now start coming in and start from an edge and come around like a semicircle and come back up. So by doing this, okay, it just gives it a little bit more, what should I say? a little more dimension, if you will. And then this is where you sit around here forever, and then you just kind of bring in other colors, and then, I mean, this is just very quick, rudimentary kind of stuff here, so, but it gives you the idea anyway. All right, so we're going to get back to that. Maybe I'll finish off. Oh, we're going to bring it all. And I just went over everything I did, of course. Yeah, well, it's all part of the process. You just, you know, because initially you got to fill it in with color anyway. So that's a little bit of the thing. Is, you know, you got to fill the space, and then you can, I mean, of course you can leave areas unfilled and distressed looking. You don't have to have every crevice filled. But because it's textured, because the canvas is textured, if you leave the unpainted parts there, it looks a little unfinished at times, right? You know, one of the things I like to do is I like working on rocks and cliffs and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. So now I paint some kind of a little too thick here and muddy, but again, I'm not too worried about it. This is just all very beginning. But you see how we're working it slowly but surely here. All right, I'll come back to that in a minute. All right, sorry for that noise. All right, so I just spent a couple minutes away from you, not long, 5 minutes, just to do a couple things that I just want to give you an idea of an example. Again, I'm not too worried about this specific painting, although by the time I'm done with it, I'll be happy with it. So it'll be very cool, I believe. And I'll do something different with it. But I think I'm just getting into a little bit more different techniques for people maybe who are not, haven't been that exposed to art and are just kind of breaking into it. So there may be a proper terminology for certain techniques that I may not, or that I don't know. But so you have the idea of two things. For instance, I started drawing this in on this side without doing the background or laying the background in first. And that's perfectly fine. There's no problem with that. It just ends up having a slightly different look to it. I won't call it more cartoonish, but like for instance, if I want to put in the sky, I now have to fill in areas. So obviously this is not a clean line at the moment right here. This is just very janky. I just started this thing, right? But what I meant earlier about not worrying about the clean lines is I'm filling this area, okay? And I can come in and, you know, add more white and clean it up, make it lighter blue and all that stuff. But now I'm coming up to these lines. It's like coloring in almost, right? So as opposed to over here, where now I've painted the background in first, so you could have painted the whole background in and then sketch on top of it, or paint, you know, ultimately paint directly on top of it, whether you sketch something out first or not. That, you know, that's your scene, right? But so you have two ideas. You have put in your items and then fill in behind that. Okay, I don't know if there's a name for that or not. There probably is, but I don't know it. But so here I am. And that's what I meant earlier about not worrying about these lines too much, because it's by filling it in that I can clean up all that stuff. So if I thought that was too thick of an area in there for the branch, I could narrow it some, right, by filling in the background. So that's one technique. I can come in, put, you know, some more white, add a little more kind of a cloud deal. I'm just messing around with this. I'm just showing you more technique. I'm filling this in. I'm gonna kind of mess that up, so maybe I do away with that whole branch right there. I didn't like that anyway. I can kind of leave it more something like that. And I can clean that up. But you get the idea. So I'm basically filling that area in as opposed to painting the background in and then coming in. I'm going to get paint all on myself. But then doing something on top. Okay? That's the other technique, where you're going to do something on top of it. The benefit to that is then it is very clean. I mean, sometimes you'll see somebody do a painting and they don't get every little crevice. So then you'll see little gaps of white or something where the canvas wasn't painted on. So it almost, I don't know. I mean, you have different looks at different times and different reasons for doing it and stuff like that. But you have two ideas. So either filling in the thing like I did, that's where you can come in and clean up the lines if you want to. That way, make things a little narrower. You know, right here, this is probably a little too thick for my liking, and I can come in, or laying it down on top of it. So then I'd come in and paint on top of it. Then it's not as much of a struggle to make sure things meet up. That's a very loud truck that went by. Low production facilities. But you get the idea. So I'm not going to want you, or have you, I don't have one of these time-lapse things, so I'm not going to make you suffer through this whole thing, but I'll keep revisiting this. But that gives you an idea of either laying in a background and then progressively layer things on top of that, or put in your imagery and then paint in behind it. Just two different techniques, two different styles. You know, earlier I was talking about, just real quick too, about this whole idea of making these kind of half curves to show a little bit more dimension, a little bit more that it's rounded, right? And I do that. I had that one painting with, as you saw on there, of that panda. But those branches led to that. So as much as I said that earlier, and that's true, although that doesn't look good because the colors don't work with that or anything like that, these particular trees are going to have more like bark, you know. Well, I'm sure that other tree had bark too, but it just looks cylindrical. So then I could come in and start laying some colors down and play with that. I haven't even really gotten into these trees or anything yet. I'm just playing around. So I'm going to keep working on this a little bit more. I'll get back to you. I'm going to play around with these rocks, and it'll be cool. It's so funny with every painting too. I don't know how other people feel, but it always takes a while to develop and to get excited about it. Hardly ever. I mean, I'm really happy with everything that I do, but not initially. Initially, it's like this. It's like, okay, this seems like junk. But the more time you spend on it, the more you work on it, blah, 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 you know how it goes. It's just like with everything. And you just have to keep working. You know, too easy to quit, man. Well, I didn't do a good job there, but the idea is this one would jet out here. Oh, this, how about black right there? All right, I'm not going to bore you too much on that. I'll show you some more later. Okay, you're back with me. I left you for a few minutes. Sorry about that. Wasn't trying to be rude. I'm not going to, as I mentioned before, finish this painting while I'm with you. You'll have to go to my website, mindofartist.com, or my Facebook page, Peter Barron, to see the end result. But I wanted to go through it, and I'll go through it a little bit more with you. But I just wanted to share something, is that every time I get frustrated, I've done over 250 paintings. I've now lost track, so it's 220 or 50, I'm not sure. A lot of paintings. Every time I get frustrated, whether it's a abstract piece, whether it's something like this, or whatever the style, or whatever the message, anything like that, I always will get frustrated. Probably most artists do as well. I'm not sure, or maybe they don't, but I do. but it's the perseverance. It's the pushing through. Like, for instance, right now I'm very unhappy with this. I had no idea what I'm going to do when I'm starting. As you saw, I just started sketching some trees and things like that. But it's very rudimentary right now. Well, of course it's going to be very raw and crude right now because I just started. So, but when you're doing it, it's easy to get to a point and say, oh, okay, I already spent this much time on this, and it's not quite getting there. I don't like it. Because right now, well, I should say about 3-4 minutes ago, when I didn't have this piece here, I was frustrated with it. I'm like, man, I could do this shit when I was in 4th grade. But even after all these paintings, and even after all these years, on this painting and my last painting, I said, okay, well, no, just push through. Peter, you've done this 250 times, so just push through and work to the point where if you stop, you just feel good about where you stop. So there's a little progression, and that's kind of where I got to right here. I just added this little, so I'm just kind of very quickly throwing in background. As I get in and spend more time on it, then I become more deliberate with what I'm doing and work on smaller areas, start adding more detail and all of that. But especially in the beginning, when you're just slapping color down and everything, it's easy to get discouraged until it gets to a point where you feel good. Well, I wasn't feeling good up until a couple seconds ago, where all of a sudden I had this and I'm like, okay, I'm feeling that, but this little ridge here, this little shelf, this little broken off part, I hadn't put. And just this little incorporation of this thing here, for some reason to me, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling that now. Gave it a little more dimension, a little bit more something, depth. And the incorporation of these lighter tones. So now I can imagine doing more here, fine-tuning that even more, but taking that same idea, moving it here, working in these branches. I haven't decided whether I want to put foliage or just leave them raw, but then I'll put some clouds in there. The point is, I wanted to give up, and only a couple minutes ago, by adding this little feature here, which I have a lot more to do, obviously, but just adding this little extra element, and then the change of color in here a little bit, kind of like the light would be reflecting off there. Now, all of a sudden, if I wanted to rest and go on to a different project, I could at least feel good that progression's being made, and I pushed through to a point where now I'm happy about it. So for me, I'm going to throw this on my floor where I can stare at it looking down, since I work flat all the time. So I'm going to lay it over there, and then this is where you would get this. So I'm looking at this perspective all of a sudden from it. So there you go. So here we are the next day, and I had no plans originally of finishing this. Sometimes these things can take weeks and weeks, but I stayed up late last night, worked on it a bunch of hours, and this morning, and this is what I came up with. I decided to call it Lean On Me. It's kind of funny because I had no original plan on this, as you remember. But for some reason, I decided to make that tree, both of them, like falling, but the one on the right, even more so. So as I did that with no original intent, to me, that tree on the left has got his branch extended, and it's like, I got you. I'm going to try to help you hang on. And that rock or that boulder there in front, kind of giving it a little extra support. You know, what's this whole thing supposed to mean? Well, to me, this is like we all need some assistance no matter what. Everybody in life is going to need assistance at some point. So this is called Lean On Me. So hopefully you dig it. I dig it. See, I'm real cool with it now. I'm real happy. I left that, there's a little part there. Or is it down there? That's left undone. I think I'm going to leave that undone. I don't know. Just kind of feel like it. So there you go. There's always a little bit of abstraction in here. All right. Lean on me. Thanks a lot. Now, I'll tell you what. Let's move on to that abstract piece real quick. This was going to be a trip. All right. Bye. Okay. Well, thanks for hanging out with me still. I appreciate that, even if you took a break and came back. So Nice hanging out with you. So this is an abstract piece that I know we're close to finishing. That's not my intent at all. It'll probably look absolutely nothing like that, although there's elements in there that I'm seeing. So I just threw on different paint, just screwing around, see if something came up. Nothing did, so I'm going to keep working through that. But the irony or the story I want to tell you real fast is, so I had this out here just like this yesterday, as I was painting on that other painting, with the intent of getting to it today. I had two people come by, my neighbor Terry and his friend Doug. They walked in here separately, not at the same time, so one didn't know what the other one said. And one came in right away, I think it was Doug first. He's like, oh man, I really like that. That's cool. Why didn't you send me a picture of it, a text? I'm like, well, because I'm not done. It's not going to be anything like that. He's like, well, I don't know. I like that. And then Terry comes in a couple of minutes later, and he looks at it and said, I like that a lot. That's really nice. And I said, what? No, I'm not. I'm still working on it. That's not the intention. He's like, well, I wouldn't change it. I would keep it just like that. So, if you're batting 1,000, well, now granted, that's a small pool. 2 of 2 is not that many people. The more people you ask, the more variance you're going to get. But nonetheless, it was 2 for 2. So there's part of you to think if those two like it, a couple other people will like it for sure. Okay, so here we are for round 2 of this second painting. As I described before, or as you saw before, it's just a bunch of blobby colors together. And I am clueless on what I'm going to do. I think part of it will be is I'm going to see what paints I have left. I think I was initially talking about bringing some white in through here. And so yeah, I mean, let's do that. Let's fly by the seat of our pants here and do a few different things. All right, I mean, I'm sure most of you people are probably advanced in painting, don't need me to tell you much, but you have different techniques. You can obviously put your paint in. I use a paper plate, people use palettes and so on and so forth, so it just depends. I like the more disposable nature of it, because after I build up in a lot of paint, then it becomes hard to kind of use because all the paint falls in these crooks and crannies, and then it's hard to get it out. So you obviously have the idea of putting paint on your brush, you're painting your house, you're painting something, and stroking it. Well, that didn't sound too good, didn't sound too right, but laying it down in this kind of manner, right? So that's a typical way, and you got short strokes, you've got these long, sweeping kind of strokes. All right, versus, it's funny, there was a painting, I don't know if you remember seeing, oh, by the way, I want to make a correction. I had said something about a panda bear. No, it's a koala bear, so I'm sorry, that wasn't correct. But, so you have that versus coming in here and just throwing paint down directly on the canvas in a very haphazard manner. I'm just randomly picking this blue here. You know what's funny about this, what I'm doing right here is, on that one painting that's called Mixed Up, it's like a sailboat and a bird in front, heavily textured, you saw a little bit ago. It's really the first time I had done that, but this was the manner in which I was doing it. I was actually, just with this big blobs of colors, right? So super textured, but let me tell you something. By the time that I went, and I had no idea what I was going to paint, it just happened as I kept doing that. See, I don't even like that brush, but we're just going to get a little wild at the moment. Let me get a darker blue as well. You know what? Actually, let's throw some black in there. But, what can I say? Too many things going on in my head at the same time. I used to deal with nothing but oils. 20 years of oils, but the fumes got to me after a while. It's very hard with the kids and stuff like that to deal with that. So here I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll just doing this, and that's what I did on that painting. Oh, that's what I was saying. You know, that shit cost me about $100 in paint. You know, then eventually the sailboat, the water, and the marshy thing came out, the marshy scene. So I did that the whole entire painting. What am I doing? I have no idea. But this is what I did. So that painting is really heavy, and I mean, relatively speaking. And so you have whatever technique this would be. And then if something would form in front of that. In this case, I'm not really worried about forming anything. So you have that idea of doing things like that. People use a palette knife, which I'm sure you're familiar with. I like to use actually business cards, but I've got these index cards, or not index, these postcards. I like to double or triple up on them and get them a little stiffer. Or in this case, I had this board. It was the back of a frame. All right, so obviously you got more rigid versus pliable, or a little bit more flexible. So depending on what it is you want to do, but if you wanted to cover a large swath of color and let things blend in, and I think that needs I don't really have any yellow, but I could throw in this little touch of it. It's like, shit, what is this? It's like throwing everything in the stew, in the pot. You're like somebody at home making gumbo, or I've never done seafood really. I'm not a seafood guy. My kids, shout out to Hunter and Diego. It's my boys, man. All right, so versus, and I have no idea where I'm going with this. But now, this is for an abstract color scene, obviously, at the moment, but the harder you push and pull or drag, the less color that's going to appear on there. So the lighter you do it, you get more of a glazed, where the paint is kind of grabbing. See, this is all acrylic, and the acrylic dries really fast. When it was oils, and when I used oils all the time, they take a long time to settle and to set. So, which is great in a sense where you can blend colors and shades together really nicely. But I just couldn't deal with the oils and with the kids, so I went to acrylics, got used to it, and like with the bad thing about the oils is something would take forever to dry. It's textural. I don't want to wait 2 weeks for that shit to dry, right? So then I'd have to move on to another project before I can get in there. The nice thing about this is even things with texture, they're going to take a few minutes to dry, but it's minutes or an hour or something like that. Usually, I mean, pretty quick, relatively speaking, so I can keep going. Now, I have no idea what the hell that's supposed to be. I kind of like it. Now, what do I do with it? That's a good question. I feel... Where's black? I'm going to pull that back in here for some reason. Okay, so I'm going to do something weird now. I'm going to dab all that black there with no freaking idea what's going on. I am going to stick a little white, which we know is going to make the gray. Right. But you know what? I'm going to trick out on it. I'm going to grab... I don't think there's anything left of this orange. There it is, like that. Now, I'm going to take... I had a red... Alright, hang on. I'll go anyway. Just look at it because I'm weird, I'm tripping. Why did I pour that? I don't even know. And now we're going to go to another technique of... You got a lot of clay in that canvas now, right? Different texture depending on how much pressure I put. Now that last painting I did, I actually finished that. I was not planning on that at all. So So this one I most probably won't. Yeah, that orange guy. Oh. I don't know. And at what point after I continue to make a mess here, then I will put the canvas on the wall or lay it on the floor and take a look at it and see how I'm feeling about something. So now I think at this point, I think I'm going to pull some color on the other side. I'm going to use this little board this time. And this is probably going to be it for now. Let's see. Alright, so goodbye to that orange primarily, mostly. Okay, so. Alright, so this is weird because now as I've done this, I'm liking this more so than that, so I'm wondering if this almost feels to me like it would be some kind of marina, like a boats in the dock. And I can get to that later. I got a bunch of white on that right now. I could even go like, or better yet, since I'm thinking about it, let's ditch that. There's not that much paint on there. Let me just... All right, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much. And that's it. Much love. mindofanartist.com. I appreciate you taking the time.